right, well, welcome everyone. You should be able to hear us now. I'm really excited to welcome you today to this webinar, which is about the Indiana Sustainability Development Program and the 2019 Resilience Cohort. My name is Andrea Webster. I am the Implementation Manager at the Environmental Resilience Institute at Indiana University, which is part of the Prepared for Environmental Change Grand Challenge. So the Institute is part of Indiana University's Grand Challenge, but first and foremost, we are a research institute. My job is to connect the research being conducted here at the Institute with local governments and others to help the state of Indiana prepare for floods, higher temperatures, and other related impacts. Today, we are going to present on the, let's see, I'll change the slide here. There we go. So today we're going to present an overview of the Indiana Sustainability Development Program and the 2019 Resilience Cohort. So ISDP is a way for businesses, nonprofits, and local governments to increase their staff capacity for sustainability work. This is the third year of the program. The first 2 years were a smashing success. And as third year, we expect will be the same, and we expect to have a really great group of very talented students, as well as a bunch of great hosts, which is what we're recruiting you for today. So new this year, we are going to be offering a new option for local governments, which is the 2019 Resilience Cohort to help cities and towns in Indiana complete a greenhouse gas inventory. So we'll talk more about that in detail later today. So with us today, we have Cale Roberts, who is a program officer with ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability. Cale is going to be presenting on ClearPath, which is the software that helps cities and towns complete greenhouse gas inventories and makes it very easy for them to do so. So we're excited to hear more about that. I also have Danny Schaus with me, standing right next to me, which you all should be able to see in the video. So she will be talking about the Indiana Sustainability Development Program, which some of you may know as the Sustainability Extern program. So Danny is with Sustain IU, which has recently been rebranded. Formerly, it was known as just IU Office of Sustainability. So still the same entity and same person, but they have a new name. So with that, I'd like to introduce Danny. So Danny is, I guess first I have a few housekeeping things I need to mention before I forget. So if you have questions during the webinar, please type them into the question box or into the chat box in the Zoom control panel. So you should be able to see that by hovering your mouse over the main window, and there should be an option that pops up that allows you to see the chat function. I do have all of you muted at the present time, and if at the end you would like to unmute yourself to ask questions during the Q&A following all of our presentations, you're welcome to do so. Or you can type your questions in the chat box throughout the presentation, and we'll try to get to them either during the presentation or at the end. So now I will continue with introducing Danny. So Danny is the Outreach Coordinator for the Indiana Sustainability Development Program, or what we often refer to as ISDP. So she's worked in the sustainability nonprofit sphere here in Indiana for the past 10 years, and she's currently completing her master's degree in environmental policy and sustainability at the IUPUI School of Public and Environmental Affairs, formerly known as SPIA, or presently known as SPIA, I guess, and this December. And she oversees partner and student recruitment at the 3 IU regional campuses that are participating in the program. And those 3 campuses are IU Bloomington, IUPUI in Indianapolis, and then IU South Bend, which is the new addition this year. So with that, I will hand it over to Danny.
Awesome. Thanks for the introduction, Andrea. It's great to be speaking with all of you today. We've got a great group represented here from all 3 sectors, which is really exciting. I've spoken briefly about the program with several of you, but I appreciate you all taking the time today to participate in this webinar to learn a little bit more about both ISDP and the 2019 Resilience Cohort. We're super excited about this new partnership with ERI this year, and we are just going to jump right into it. I'm going to give you a brief overview of what exactly is ISDP. So what is it? Well, it's a program of Sustain IU. We are funded primarily by the McKinney Family Foundation, and it's a sustainability-focused workforce development program for both undergraduate and graduate students. As Andrea mentioned earlier, we recruit students from both the 3 campuses, IU Bloomington, IUPUI, and new this year, IU South Bend. And we focus on recruiting partners and placing students in 3 to 4 different regions of the state. This year, we'll be working with Indianapolis partners, Bloomington, South Bend area partners, and Southwest Indiana. Some of the goals of this program, basically, we're trying to prevent brain drain. 55% of graduates from Indiana University, after 3 years of graduating from their program, a lot of them leave the state. And so we know that the state is facing a lot of challenges, especially in the environmental realm. And so this program was born out of that desire to not only train students, but get them connected here in the state and provide them some employment opportunities after they graduate. So as I mentioned, it's a statewide network of the 3 sectors, corporate, nonprofit, and government. We train and place these interns through partner development and an intensive sustainability training, which we call boot camp. And we're just trying to build this next generation of talented sustainability leaders. So you are most interested, I'm sure, in what exactly it takes to be a partner. So this is a pretty wordy slide, I apologize, but I wanted to just make you aware of all the different things that go into this program. So partners need to be based out of Indiana. We have worked with some national organizations and their local chapters. So if that applies to you, just keep in mind we work here with the Indiana partners. You have to have the ability to host the extern in a full-time capacity for 10 to 12 weeks over the summer. And we're looking for actual high-level sustainability tasks, not so much admin and data entry type of work. And you need to have the ability to mentor this student through the summer, since they'll be working directly with you, your organization. And we'll work with you to draft a job description. We are asking this year for some more partner buy-in and support through financials, and we can get into that at the end. We have a tiered sliding scale for different financial amounts that you can contribute to the program to help cover the cost of actually hiring the students. And as I mentioned, we have this 3-day intensive boot camp training, and we're really looking for some partner support for that this year. We'd really like to have organizations come in and help lead those trainings and help the students not only network, but get to know you better before they work with you this summer. And new this year, we're actually asking our partners to help us identify or actually provide some local housing for externs. We've learned from the first 2 years of the program that, especially in rural areas, it's pretty challenging for these students to find that short-term housing. So we'll be really leaning on you as partners to help identify those affordable short-term housing options this summer. And just to give you a brief idea, we don't just hire the students and then pass them on to you and say good luck. We actually will recruit and hire the students, make sure that they get paid at the beginning of the summer. We'll help you draft those final job descriptions. I will plan the training, and throughout the summer, we will be checking in with both the externs and the partners to make sure that you're both getting the support that you need. Something that's not mentioned on the slide that we started doing last year, actually it is in there. We do some site visits. We will actually be visiting all of the partners over the summer to check in both with you, the mentor, as well as the student, to see how we can continue to improve the program and make sure that you guys are getting that support throughout the summer. So with that, I will turn it back over to Andrea and Kale.
Great. Well, I'm going to get us started here, and then Kale, I will make you presenter when the time comes. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the Resilience Cohort, which, as we've said, is new this year. It is part of the ISDP Sustainability Extern program, and it provides Indiana cities, towns, and counties with training, technical resources, and a peer network, most importantly, to complete a community-scale greenhouse gas inventory. So this is a greenhouse gas inventory for your community and not for your local government operations. Participants in the 2019 Resilience Cohort will work alongside Indiana peers, and they'll receive technical support from ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability, And as I mentioned, you'll hear from Cale Roberts later in the presentation. So, and ICLEI really has a lot of experience. They've been doing this for years, helping cities complete greenhouse gas inventories. And ClearPath is the go-to software for local governments to complete greenhouse gas inventories. I've used it myself, completing greenhouse gas inventories for cities, and it really does make the process really straightforward. So I'd like to take a step back before I go any further and talk about what a greenhouse gas inventory is, and specifically what greenhouse gases are. So greenhouse gases, the one you hear about most often is carbon dioxide, but you often hear about methane or nitrous oxide as well. They're released when we drive cars or when waste breaks down in the landfill, and during some industrial processes, during agricultural and forest practices, and during other natural and human activities. So greenhouse gases, when they are released, go up into the atmosphere, and they trap and hold heat in the atmosphere, creating the greenhouse effect, which leads to climate change. So when we talk about inventorying greenhouse gases, this is the process of completing sort of an accounting of greenhouse gases, and the process provides data on the amount of energy consumed, the diversity of energy supplied to the grid, the community's vehicle type and fuel usage distribution, and so much more. It's a lot of it is about counting your greenhouse gases, but communities get a lot more out of it than just a number at the end. So the process in and of itself and the information that comes out of it is very useful for cities, both in terms of sustainability and for just general operations. So it's really a great step to take. So once you have this inventory, you can use the data to set a reduction target and develop a plan for reducing those emissions. So with that, I'm going to move on to the next slide and talk about, whoops, looks like I moved too quickly there. All right, so the 2019 Resilience Cohort, I can't stress enough that this is an easy process. I know it sounds very intimidating and science oriented, and it is all based in science and how we count these things, but it really is not as bad as it may seem. And I want to specify too that you're never going to have 100% accurate greenhouse gas inventory. This is an estimate, and it's meant to be an estimate. But as long as you're estimating in the same way every time you do this, you can set goals and track your reductions over time. And so the things that you are able to measure a bit more accurately than others, then you can actually start to reduce those emissions. And Cale can talk more about that too, but I want to stress a lot that you should not feel intimidated by this process. ICLEI walks you through what you need to do step by step. And you can almost go into this blind, you definitely can go into this having never done this before. And we feel very confident that students will be able to complete this process. I myself was a student when I did this for a city, and it was fine, and I've seen it happen in many cities around the country. So I want to talk next about the participation benefits. So first and foremost is access to ClearPath, which is the software that ICLEI uses to complete the inventory. It is cloud-based, and you are able to keep that data. And as I mentioned, Cale will talk more about that later. Participating in the Resilience Cohort will provide you with step-by-step guidance through the inventory process, and will provide training and technical assistance specific to Indiana, offered through 10 live webinars throughout the summer. There's also a bit of one-on-one technical assistance that you'll receive from ICLEI, and we'll hopefully be doing some peer-to-peer networking as well that will be offered through the Environmental Resilience Institute to really make sure that you're connecting with the folks across Indiana doing the same thing as you. So, and of course, you'll have that network, and so you'll have what we're calling power in numbers to encourage timely and complete responses to data requests. So many agencies and utilities have never been asked for this data before. And so when we go to them and they're getting several requests for this at once, then they'll realize the importance of it and hopefully get us that data in a quick manner. So once this inventory is complete, then ICLEI is offering recognition through their Milestone Award. And if desired, they can offer some marketing and communications support, such as giving a press release template and some other simple, helpful tools such as those. There's also access to the ICLEI online community, which is a peer networking hub on the internet, on the web, to complete greenhouse gas inventory training videos and crowdsourced Q&A with dozens of cities throughout the length of the cohort. And the really great benefit about completing and participating in the Resilience Cohort is that at the end, you'll have the option to apply for a 1-year ICLEI membership at a price reduced by the amount paid to participate in the Resilience Cohort. So, and I want to make sure to and specify again that this is an option that's only available this year for local government participants. At this time, if there's interest, we can potentially consider expanding it in the future, but this year we'll try it with local governments. And this is a model that ICLEI has used in other states and other regions as well, so it's certainly not new, and they've fine-tuned it quite a bit. Now, in order for a local government to participate, there are 3 ways to participate in the ISDP extern program in general. So track 1 is to host an ISDP extern and not participate in the Resilience Cohort. So you would participate in ISDP and you would select any sustainability related project that you want to have done within your local government. And then you can have that intern or extern work on that project throughout the summer. Track 2 is to participate in both ISDP and in the Resilience Cohort. So in this scenario, you would apply for both programs and hopefully get an extern to help with that greenhouse gas inventory over the summer. Track 3 is to participate in the Resilience Cohort without an ISDP extern. So say you already have somebody on staff at your city or town who wants to do this process themselves and you want to have more control over it. That's perfectly okay, and we certainly welcome those types of participants, and we're happy to help you as well. We'll help students, we'll help you complete the inventory. So there is a small fee, and we try to keep this fee as low as possible. And it's based on population size of the scope. So if you're a county or a city or a town, we take a look at your population size. If you're less than 50,000, then it costs $200. If you're more than 50,000, it'll cost $500. And I will say that we try to set this at a low rate and still allow you all to kind of chip in. But if this still is a fee that is prohibitive, please let us know and we'll see what we can do to help you out with that. But if you are able to pay, that would be preferred. I also want to thank Earth Charter Indiana. I believe we have a couple of Earth Charter folks on the call today. So they have agreed to help subsidize the cost that it costs for us to pay ICLEI for Indiana to participate in this program. So thank you, Earth Charter, for that assistance. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about the timeline next. So the application deadline, you still have about 2 months. It's December 14th, 2018, but we wanted to get this webinar out here early so that you'll have time to work on all the application details that go into this. And Danny will go over that here shortly. Then once you apply, there's sort of 2 different programs, as you saw, the overlapping concentric circles on the previous slide. So no matter whether you want to participate in the Resilience Cohort or ISDP in general, or whether you're a business or you're a nonprofit or local government, no matter what, there's one application. And so that's available on the Sustain IU website, and so Danny will point you to that. And we plan to notify you of your acceptance, or we hope we're able to accommodate everybody, but it doesn't always quite work out, but you'll be notified by January 11th, 2019, at least that's our goal. And then any payments that's due for the Resilience Cohort will be due March 1st. So no payments are necessary until March 1st. I know that sometimes in local governments that it's better to pay during one quarter than another. So just let us know, we can try to work with that. And then the cohort will start, the Resilience Cohort is going to start April 15th and end September 15th, which is a longer time span than the actual ISDP program. And the reason for that is that we want to get you started with collecting data and let you know what the process is going to be like before the externs actually arrive physically. So, and if you don't have an extern, then that's fine too. Then you get a head start on getting all this done. So, so that's the purpose of that, and we hope that that will be helpful. So next, I'd like to pass it over to Kale, and you'll have to bear with me for a couple minutes as I Kale, I'm going to unmute you now, and then I'm going to make you a co-host, and I'm going to stop sharing, and that should allow you to start sharing your screen.
All right, sounds good. You're able to hear me. Okay. Now I just have to figure out how to do the screen share.
Okay, so once you hover your mouse over the main screen, there should be a button that pops up that says share screen.
Okay. Oh, got it. Cool. Great. So just tell me when you see it.
You can see your screen now.
Okay, great. Should have these 5 milestones up here. Yeah, thank you both so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. My name's Kale, everybody. I'm on the ICLE Local Governments for Sustainability USA team. We've worked with many Indiana communities over the past 20 years. I was trying to count it up, and I got to 15, and then I think there's probably a few more. So some of you may be saying hi again. For others, it's saying hi for the first time, but really, really exciting to see all this enthusiasm and action coming out of Indiana. It's fantastic. And you know, what we do at ICLE is work with communities all around the US every day, putting together greenhouse gas inventories, developing out climate action plans, more and more thinking about adaptation and resilience, and where this more emissions management falls into a broader preparedness theme. And all of that goes along with that on the social side as well as the environmental side. So really great to see this kind of movement coming out of Indiana. So we work with about, let's see, at any given moment, probably around 200 cities throughout the US. And we host these cohort trainings several times per year, all focused on some aspect of climate action or sustainability. You can see on the screen here, this is kind of a useful framework that we've used called the 5 Milestones framework, developed since the 90s. So 400 or 450, around that many communities have used this framework on emissions management. They're in the middle, but also on adaptation planning and sustainability planning. And it really just follows the regular project management framework, starting with developing your baseline, kind of collecting the data, seeing where you're at on any one of these aspects, and then moving to defining a target. In the case of emissions management, that's to reduce emissions. Then developing out plans, implementing the many projects that you'll take on to reduce emissions over time, and then monitoring those results. So this framework is probably nothing new. It's basic project management, but it's a very useful to chart a path forward. And where most of you all are at is right here with milestone 1, and that's honestly still to this day where we work with most of our communities is people just getting started. Or maybe they made the full loop and are coming around again, 5 or 10 years later, trying to assess where we're at right now in terms of emissions management. So the greenhouse gas inventory, of course, is a big piece of that. Switching over here to our ClearPath tool that was mentioned, Yeah, I mean, you said that it makes it really easy to jump in with little to no experience and put together a greenhouse gas inventory. I hope that's true. Um, so this is our ClearPath tool. You can see that it's broken down into two tracks: a government track, so municipal operations, and then a community-wide track. A lot of people ask me, are communities doing one or the other more than the other? And we really see a pretty clear or a pretty balanced split, I guess, with many communities doing both tracks at the same time. You're out there collecting data on a whole host of different sectors. It's not actually that much work to just do them all at once, but there are reasons that you might choose one or the other, and we would cover a lot of that. So so you have a sense of the type of data that you're collecting. If you're a city staff member, or if you're thinking of bringing on an extern, this is, I hope in like 2 minutes, I'll give you a little scoping sense of what you'd be getting into. So these are all of our test accounts. You'll have a blank page to work from. It won't be so jumbled. But I won't go over anything in detail, just showing you on the community scale side. When we talk about a greenhouse gas inventory, it's looking at sources of greenhouse gas emissions. So that's, where's CO2, the carbon dioxide, coming from in your community. Also methane and nitrous oxide. So those three criteria greenhouse gases, there are various sources, and we divide those up into sectors. And those are all listed here at the top, each with a different tab, starting here with residential energy. So in our ClearPath tool, this is how we organize it. If you were using an Excel workbook or somebody else's tools entirely, you'd still see a similar setup here. So you have a set of calculators for each sector that you're working through. I just clicked over to transportation, so you can see how that kind of switches up. You're accounting for things you'd expect: on-road transportation. If you have any public transit, the emissions coming from that. Some communities may have an airport or a rail station. So it's really just customizable to your local context, what sources of emissions exist where you live. And so, we put together these cohorts, several a year, to work together as a big group, as a team, maybe 10 to 20 cities. And we find that is most effective at the regional level, so at the statewide level. We've done statewide cohorts in California, worked really well. Also national cohorts, when, say, there's a leadership campaign like the Global Covenant of Mayors, or others that you've heard of, cities will come together to try to meet those kinds of commitments. But you all are in a fortunate spot if you decide to move forward on this plan, because you're all there in the same state, probably hooked up to the same utility grid, using similar water infrastructure, that sort of thing that really eases this process and makes a lot of sense to do it as a group. Also, it's just more fun. And then what you get in the end is something, a prettier, more useful version of this like short form graphic here in the bottom corner. You have all your different sectors accounted for, and various metrics built out of how you can characterize the emissions coming from there. You don't have to get this just bulk unit metric tons of CO2. There's many different ways that we can help you analyze that data. I'll try to keep it short. I could talk about greenhouse gas emissions inventories all day long, and hopefully we'll get that chance, but I did want to show you some of our other support systems that we have for cities. One being, thank you so much for mentioning it, the ICLEI community. So this is our online peer city networking hub, built around these different interest groups or work groups. So you can see we have one, we call them neighborhoods actually. So this is our neighborhood for greenhouse gas inventories. We have equity accounted for here. We'd build out an Indiana coordination neighborhood all your own, adaptation, resilience, these types of things. And this is your place to connect with each other there, but also, people in Colorado, people in Missouri and Iowa and California and New York, going through the same process to pose your questions and kind of crowdsource those answers. So this is also supplemented by a series of online learning tracks. One for inventories there. We'll have a climate action planning one coming soon. And so these other additional learning options are meant to supplement the cohort where we're meeting live, once a week or once every couple weeks virtually as a group. And then you can work through these different, courses in the interim. Gives you some time commitments there, different tasks. And this is meant to be very practical. Like, you're checking off the boxes for the tasks, but then when all your tasks are complete, your inventory is done. So it's, it's kind of like a learn as you implement sort of situation. So last thing I'll mention is that we do quite a bit of recognition. Obviously, we're a national and an international network of 1,500 or I think it's actually 1,750 cities globally now. And we'll put together, case studies. That 5 milestones framework, we have a Milestones award. So after you get your inventory, we issue the award and put out a press release and share that around the network, so we can really say, hey, you as a community have stepped up to the plate, you've moved forward on climate action, and here's, meeting your first milestone and where you're off to go from there. So we do like to support our communities in a number of ways. And yeah, I think that kind of sums up our approach to the cohort model. I want to say thank you to you for having me, and also Earth Charter for seeing the value of this work, and for ICLEI. We have membership dues, but we're an NGO. We also try to keep them low and just keep sustainability affordable for everybody. So it's groups like Earth Charter who really make that possible for a group like ICLEI. So thank you so much there. And yeah, any questions? I guess I'm here till the end, and I'll turn it back over to you guys.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Cale. I really appreciate that presentation, and hopefully it gives all of our viewers today a little bit better idea of what they're getting into. And of course, we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end, and I believe Cale's going to stick around if you guys have any more questions for him. So with that, I would like to go ahead. I'm going to share our screen again, and I'm going to hand it back over to Danny to present on the timeline and application process.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Andrea. So I'm going to be talking about the process, what makes a good application, and then the overall timeline for ISDP. It is slightly different than the cohort, but we do try to make our dates line up so there's not too much confusion. So I think the application process in itself is pretty straightforward. We will ask that you submit an online application along with your sample job description. That deadline, again, is December 14th of this year. And we will review those applications and let you know by January 11th. That is our goal. We are going to drop the link to the application into the chat bar for you all, and then we will follow up after the webinar as well with a couple links just in case. And then after we receive all those partner applications and we get confirmed with you, we'll go ahead and start formal student recruitment and get those students hired. I'll go over that timeline here in a couple slides, but just wanted to give you a sense of the application process. I do really encourage that you get your application in early in case we have questions about your job description. We'll talk about the job description and what makes a good application here on the next slide, but I really encourage you to get that in early if you know that you're interested, so we can answer any questions and work with you to make sure you've got a great job description, not only to make sure that your application is strong, but also that your job description is very descriptive and that it attracts the right kind of students. Make sure that you're getting placed with a good student. Andrea is going to drop that in here. I think she just dropped that into the chat box, the actual application. And keep in mind that application is both for ISDP as well as the 2019 Resilience Cohort. It is the same application. Depending on what questions and answers that you give to the questions, you'll give different, we'll ask for different information, but I think that's pretty self-explanatory. All right, let's go into what makes a good application. So, what makes a good application? Job description with really clear tasks and responsibilities. I understand it's a little bit early, so some of you may not know exactly what you want your extern to work on, but the more specific you can be on the types of tasks you think you'll have the student work on, the better. And it helps as well if you've got certain requirements for the student. Say you're looking for somebody with a particular skill set, for instance, GIS skills, make sure you actually put that within your job description in a skills required or skills section. That's just helpful for us as we're looking at students and reviewing those applicants. If there are also specific dates and times that your extern needs to be available, please also note that in the job description. So for instance, if you have some weekend work or some specific events that you need their help with, if you can note that in the application, that's also helpful so the students can plan their summer plans and travel around that. And then I also recommend putting your job description in your company letterhead or submitting your logo if you can. And the reason we do that is that we want students to get a really good sense for your organization, so they can be excited to work for you and get to know you a little bit better as they're going through the application process. You can see here I've screenshotted what's on the Sustain IU website right now. We do have a list of all of our externs from summer 2018 still on the website. And if you click on those drop downs, you'll see there's actually a link to the different job descriptions. So if you're looking for a good sample to get a better idea of what your job description should look like, I really recommend you go to that website, and we will drop the Sustain IU website into the chat box later as well. So just an overview of the general program timeline. Here's just some dates to make you aware of. Obviously, we've began partner recruitment, and those applications are due December 14th. We've begun some preliminary student recruitment, but we'll begin that in earnest in the next month or so. We will stop accepting student applicants at the end of February, and we like to get them hired by spring break. I use spring break, as you can see there, is March 9th. So if you have a desire to be involved in that hiring process, maybe you want to sit in on interviews or have a chance to look at some of the different applicants that are coming in, you need to let us know that early so we can build in that time. We also do ask, as I mentioned earlier, that partners, if you're able to put in some funding to help support the cost of the student stipend, we do ask for that in March, and we will get those funds all secured, and then we'll let you know the dates for the May boot camp. That will be early May. We just haven't secured the exact dates yet, and that will be in Indianapolis. So if you're interested in attending that boot camp, we can let you know those dates once we have them. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that, so we have the application online, but I'm going to bring up another slide here. We really try to get both students and partners engaging throughout the year. So we have created a LinkedIn group for you guys to join. So if you look at the Indiana Sustainability Development Network, if you type that into the search bar on LinkedIn, it will bring up the group. And once I accept your application, I do encourage you to share any cool links or information in there. We're really trying to make sure you guys are connecting with each other and networking throughout the year. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Andrea.
Great. Well, thank you, Danny. We have, I guess, about 20 minutes left for questions. So I definitely encourage you all to ask those questions now, or you're welcome to follow up with us later as well. And again, you can enter those questions into the chat box by hovering your mouse over the Zoom screen, and there should be an option for a chat box. And you can also unmute yourself in the same way to ask questions. So what questions do you all have?
Hello?
Yes.
This is Caroline Nellis from Evansville.
Hi.
For some reason, hi. For some reason, I've had some difficulty. The sound quality is kind of low, kind of poor. It's garbled a little bit. Will there be a transcript given out of this session?
There will be. So we are recording the webinar today, and we will get a transcript made, and that will be posted with the recording. So we will have that available, and we'll send a follow-up email to all of you with a link to that information.
Well,
yeah, I apologize if the sound quality is not coming through. We'll have to look into that.
Well, it's coming through, but it's just kind of it's sometimes not real comprehensible. But thank you very much. I appreciate that there's going to be a transcript and recording.
Great.
Bye.
Yeah, and feel free to follow up with us individually if you have specific questions about what we presented.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. All right, we have one other question that came in that says, how much were you hoping partners would contribute to the extern?
So that's a great question. We are pretty sensitive that we know that both nonprofits and cities have sometimes pretty tight resources and tight budgets. So we're willing to actually work with you. I hate to throw out a specific number because I know each city and town and each nonprofit is different resources that they're working with. So I'm happy to talk through that with you. If you're able to contribute any amount to the externship, we do appreciate that. It allows us to not only hire students, but to hire even more students and work with additional partners. We would like to ideally hire 30 students this year. We will hire at least 24, but I'd like to hire even more. Since we've got so many great organizations we'd like to work with, and so many great students have already expressed interest in participating in the program. So I will follow up with you after this to talk through what that might look like.
So Danny, how much do interns or externs get paid over the summer?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the undergrads will receive a stipend of $4,800, and graduate students receive a stipend of $6,000. I apologize, I meant to mention that earlier, but that amount actually goes directly into their bursar at the university. So your organization doesn't have to go through the payroll process. We handle all of that on the front end. They receive that in their bursar at the beginning of the summer, and they're responsible for paying their bills and budgeting throughout the summer. So you don't have to mess with the payroll stuff. But it's $4,800 for undergrads and $6,000 for graduate students.
Thank you. We have another question that came in from Mayor Gerges in Bedford. So she asks, if our community participates, should it include the city only, or should it also include the county? Bedford is a small rural community of about 14,000 people, and Lawrence County is about 46,000 people. Mayor Gerges, I assume that you're referring to the Resilience Cohort, and I guess either way, you can participate from the county level or from the city level or from both. So if you want to, it depends, for the greenhouse gas inventory, it depends on what you want to try to reduce in the end. So I'm assuming that your jurisdiction is just the city of Bedford, and so if you just wanted to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions in Bedford, then you could do that inventory. But if you wanted to engage your county colleagues, then you could try to do that as well. And we could talk through this, but there may even be an option in which we could get one extern to do both the city and county for Bedford and for Lawrence County. So that could be an option, and we can talk more about that too if you're interested. And we have another question that came in from Allison. So she asks, will we have access to stats from other towns and cities so that we can use that to help make our case for action after the inventory is complete? Kale, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. You will not have access to each other's data directly, although we do at the end offer like a peer city matching where you can swap data and kind of check each other's work. So that would be the only way that you're seeing the data directly. But in other cases, we've done a bunch of media around a community whenever they've met their reduction target, say. And I have maybe 200 examples of climate action plans from ICLEI cities that list the different measures they're taking on or have proposed. So between all of that, I think we could put together a case to take, to your city council, to your constituents. That's something we really do like to help you all with. Regardless, this is actually a good point, regardless of if you join ICLEI or not, and you don't have to join ICLEI to join this cohort, we don't want to just leave you stranded after your inventory is complete. So we do allow like a buffer period at the end where, the cohort's over, but we're going to help you put together your presentation slides or those other kind of next step documentation to, take your action forward. And it very well could be help us prioritize lists of actions and provide examples from similar size cities or cities with the same industries as us. That sort of thing we're glad to do.
Great. Well, thanks, Kale, and thank you, Allison, for the question. And that does remind me that I had a conversation with Therese, who works for the city of South Bend, and they recently completed a community cohort such as this one. And they said one of the most helpful benefits of participating in that cohort was that they could compare the data that they got to other cities. And so it's really useful. So for example, I think the example they gave is that their local utility gave them data and said, this is how much energy we've used during the year that we're measuring. And the city of South Bend has no idea if that's a big number, if it's a small number, if it's right where it's supposed to be. And so, but ICLEI has enough data that they can say, no, that's way out of bounds. Go back to them and ask for that data again. Or no, that looks about right. You're probably good. So that's an incredibly useful resource as you're completing this. So we're really excited to have ICLEI as a partner in this. So hopefully that answered your question, Allison. We had a question from Jane, which I think hopefully this has been answered by now, but to clarify, so Jane asked, do we need to join ICLEI to participate? The answer is no. You do not need to join ICLEI to participate in the Resilience Cohort. To participate in the Resilience Cohort, you have to apply and be accepted. And that application is in the link that we sent in the chat box above. And we'll send that out via email afterwards too, so that it's easy and you guys can find that very easily. So, but I will remind everybody that following the completion of the Resilience Cohort, there is an opportunity to join ICLEI at a reduced cost. And that cost is reduced by either $200 or $500 or whatever you've already paid to participate in the Resilience Cohort. So hopefully that will help cities if you decide to join ICLEI afterwards. All right, we have another question that came in from Allison. It says, sounds like the extern can complete the inventory in 10 to 12 weeks. Is that correct? Can we throw other sustainability stuff on their plate at the same time, or am I being greedy? So that's a good question. I'm gonna answer this and then I'll also let Kale answer too. I think in my experience, I think, yes, you could probably give them a couple of other projects to work on. Probably nothing too big. But in the beginning, there is a lot of time where you send emails out requesting data, and then you just kind of wait for that data to arrive. So would you say that's about right, Kale?
Yeah, I would say that's right. We tell people budget 3 to 4 months, but that is 90% non-active time. That's waiting for your, data to come in, just like you said. So it's really front-loaded in that way. Then there's maybe a 3-week period where your extern is following up on data requests. It could be longer. Maybe your wastewater treatment facility takes a month or 6 weeks to get that data piece in. So that could be the time period whenever another project is scheduled, is like after the data requests are sent out, okay, now I have, 2 to 4 weeks, let's say, that I can work on a different project. Yeah, I think that would be fair.
So, Kale, most cities that participate in a greenhouse gas inventory cohort like this, or just complete a greenhouse gas inventory in general, what percentage do you think actually write a greenhouse gas inventory report afterwards? And
yeah, that's a good question. I'd say most, but not like the vast majority, like 90% do. I'm going to think more like 60 to 75% of communities will turn that into a report. And then of those reports, some are just meant as like a city council report. Some are just used by the planning department to take to next step planning activities. And then some are, outward facing reports for the whole community to see. And that's where, there's some more interpretation and environmental education that goes into those kinds of reports. So it's kind of a mix. It's definitely a best practice to report in some way. If you don't do a standalone, PDF type of report, minimally putting together some slides and a PowerPoint presentation that you publish is actually very useful and can be more engaging to a lot of different stakeholders, just relying a lot more on the visuals.
yeah, that's a great point. And the reason why I brought this up is because this is something we think about, to be thinking about as you're putting together your job description. So think about what you want to do with this information once you've gathered it and calculated it, and who you want to see it afterwards. So maybe, incorporate that into your application could be really useful. So we have one more question that came in about the resilience cohort, and I want to clarify too that, so this webinar, we have a lot of questions about the resilience cohort because it's new this year, but I want to specify and make sure everybody understands that businesses and nonprofits who are not able to participate in the resilience cohort can still participate in the Indiana Sustainability Development, the ISDP program, with any general sustainability project. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask those as well. So one question that came in from Miriam says, when will the resilience cohort meet as a group throughout the summer? Should we include those time commitments in our job descriptions for resilience cohort externs? Also, can we choose the year for our inventory, say 2017 instead of 18? Kale, I'm gonna let you answer those questions.
Yeah, sure. So, typically on the question of when do we meet, it's, typically once a week or once every 2 weeks. If we're just issuing data requests, then the training will be about how to put together a data request form and send it out. And then we'll wait, 2, sometimes 3 weeks for everyone to start to get their data in before we'll meet again. So again, it's like at the very beginning of the training series, you're going to meet more often. And then there's kind of more weeks off in the middle. And then you meet again for data collection, conditioning the data, interpretation, all that stuff. So it's like that lull period sandwiched by those 2 more intensive meeting periods. And that's all, the whole timeline we like to generally structure around what the communities as a consensus, their timeline that they want to accomplish this, when everyone has their externs, is it better to meet in the morning or the afternoon, which day of the week, all of that's decided on in kind of a survey format at the beginning.
And then the other question Kale was hoping you could answer is, can they choose the year for their inventories?
Yes, everyone can have their own year. Typically, now we're late enough in 2018, you might get a complete data set for 2018. I'd say for sure you could choose 2017 safely. We have a lot of communities that this year we're doing 2016 greenhouse gas inventories, just because they knew, from their solid waste sector, to transportation, and all the different sectors, they could get, data from that year. So another technique is maybe you could do a few different years inventories at once. Similar to, it's not that hard to request data from, say, your electric utility for municipal-wide and community-wide. You could also say, hey, I want to put together attempt to put together a 2010 and a 2015 inventory, so I can do some comparisons that way. And we can help you figure out an effective way to do that. So, and if you had all the time in the world, you might just try to see how many years worth of data you get in, and then those years that you have the complete data set, that's a good year to choose. So that's like various different ways you could go about this, and we can help you zero in on the right year from there.
And so I want to specify too, as you're thinking about your job descriptions for participating in the Resilience Cohort, I think you can, in the description, say you will be part of a cohort of cities that will be doing this together. And then the next question from Aaron from Goshen says, will Resilience Cohort externs have training in greenhouse gas inventories? So the answer is maybe, it depends, we hope. So in your job descriptions, I would recommend putting experience completing a greenhouse gas inventory as a desirable and not as mandatory. Because these are students, they're undergraduates and graduate students, and we hope that they've had some experience with this, but they probably haven't had extensive experience doing something like this. But there is a how-to manual that comes with the Resilience Cohort and with doing greenhouse gas inventories. So as long as the person can read and follow directions and is very detail-oriented, then and they feel comfortable with math a little bit at least, and working in Excel, then I think we should be on the right track for getting the right type of person.
I will say, jumping in on that, the students that we recruit typically are highly, highly skilled. We had almost 140 applicants last year for 24 positions. So really, we took the top of the top, the cream of the crop students whenever we were hiring and interviewing. So I just want to put everyone's mind at ease that while students may not have direct experience in doing a greenhouse gas inventory, these students are real go-getters. They're super, super smart. They're typically the top of their class, maybe even have some work experience before they came back to graduate school. So while they may not have formal training and experience doing the inventories and the different sustainability projects, they can more than handle this type of work. And I actually, throughout the summer, I asked that the students check in with me at least once a week so I can make sure that they are getting the resources they need. And if they need any additional assistance or resources to complete their work, we'll make sure we can get those to them.
And to add to that, we also plan to do some calls in advance of when externs start, and maybe even have them come in a day or two early to do an overview of greenhouse gas inventories and kind of a crash course. So we expect that they will have a general sense of what they're doing when they arrive. They'll certainly need some oversight. And I understand that that oversight might be coming from a person who's never done a greenhouse gas inventory before, and that's okay. And that's why folks participating in the Resilience Cohort will have ICLEI, and they'll have the Environmental Resilience Institute, and they'll have Danny and Sustain IU. So we certainly feel very confident that student quality will not be an issue in this, as long as we advertise and get the job descriptions right. The other thing I want to mention is that so the Resilience Cohort is focused on a community greenhouse gas inventory, and so that means that you'll be doing an inventory of the emissions coming from your community as a whole. So whether that's your whole county, it's both the residential, the industrial, and the transportation sectors and the private sectors. So all of that. But I want to mention too, and so all the resources that are coming from ICLEI are going to be targeted at that community greenhouse gas inventory. However, I know that there are many cities and counties that are pushing me saying, but I want to do a local government greenhouse gas inventory too. And so you could have your intern or your extern do that as well alongside. But the webinars are going to be targeted at the community-wide inventory, but that doesn't mean that they can still be working on the local government inventory as well. And I think, and I'm sure that, you know, a few questions here and there about that aren't going to be turned away from ICLEI. Hopefully I'm not overstepping Kale there, but I want to let you all know that that's an option too.
Not overstepping. I do have to jump off the line, so I just want to say thank you so much for having me. And, you know, regardless of anyone on the call, if you're, you know, interested in joining the cohort now or a future one in years from now, please just get a hold of me anytime, and we can, you know, map out a question. If you do want to join ICLEI outside of this, all that takes is, you know, getting on the phone with me, and we kind of map out a membership plan. And as part of the cohort, we would do the same thing, is at the end of the period, is talk it through. What is your goals of how to use this inventory in your planning processes, how to relay this information to all of your stakeholders. So, you know, inside this program, outside of it, would love to just think this through with you more. And Andrea and Danny, thank you so much for having me. Sorry I have to jump off.
Thank you, Kale. And we really appreciate you joining us and spending some time explaining some of the details. And we are a little past 1 o'clock here, so we want to be respectful of your time. Danny, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I don't have anything else to add. I just wanted to say thanks again for all of you for taking the time to learn more about ISDP and the 2019 Resilience Cohort. And you see our contact info is up there. If you have any questions, we are happy to talk to you. Please email us. We will send out all of this information, the recording, the link to the application, and a link to the relevant websites for you after this call. But thank you all again so much for having us.
All right. Thank you all. Take care.